Hello again. We are Chris Lee, Blake Lovell, and Max Barr of Southeastern 14 here to preview Mississippi State's road trip to Lexington to face the Kentucky Wildcats. You can catch this game on ESPN2 at 6 Central. We have a model we have set up to try to guess lines, not always right there with the actual line, but usually pretty close. What we do is we average BPI, Bart Torvik, and Ken Pomeroy. Those three have Kentucky is slightly above a 5-point favorite with a 68% chance of winning the game. Before we get into our analysis and predictions, a reminder, our channel brought to you by BetOnline. With NFL playoffs right around the corner and the NBA season in full swing, actually the playoffs are here, BetOnline has you covered with all the up-to-the-second odds, news, and scores with additional odds, lines, trends, and info on both desktop and mobile. You can access the world's best wagering information anytime. Head there today, get in on the action, see all the updated odds. Remember to use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to get your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Blake, I'll start with you because part of what we do here is we break down the teams, we break down how the matchup shapes out statistically and what we see with our eyes. Also, we look at trends and things like that in the series. So I'll let you start that. I don't know if you want to hold that part for the last or lead with it, but some interesting stuff goes on when Kentucky and Mississippi State play.
I might wait for the big reveal towards the end. But no, I'm not. Why would I do that? These two teams have seen they've seen each other play. They know what this is like, and the two fan bases have seen these two teams play. And yeah, it's very interesting to note that Mississippi State has not beaten Kentucky in Starkville or Lexington since 2009. However, they do have a win in the series. That was at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee, in the SEC tournament. That was 2021. They won that game 74-73. Now, why is that important? Because it was close. And guess what? Every single game these two teams have played has been close for about the past 8 decades by my count. Actually, it's just the past 6 games. They've all been decided by 8 points or less. 8 of the last 10 have been decided by 8 points or less. So you can probably project this to be a close game, even if you think one side has an advantage over the other. These are two teams that always seem to play a game that is right there within, striking distance for one or the other. They've played 2 overtime games in the past 4. They had an overtime game in 2022 in Lexington. They had a double overtime game in Starkville in 2021. Now, again, the theme here is that Kentucky is winning pretty much all these games except for one. So, not that surprising maybe for Kentucky to have a dominant series history over teams in the SEC, just given where they are. Mississippi State's all-time record at Kentucky is 5-51. But again, there's a lot of teams in the SEC that have struggled with probably a bad record as well. So, yeah, I think it's interesting to at least look at the setup here. You've got 2 really strong teams, 2 teams in the top 5 in our power rankings this week. And so my guess is we're getting another game that's probably played right down to the wire.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask both of these fan bases, if you ask Kentucky fans about this game, they're saying we cannot take this team lightly. And obviously, Mississippi State knows how good Kentucky is, especially after playing a similar style team in Alabama. Probably no ado Thiero again. Cal said he didn't practice on Monday, and he's still on that day-to-day status with the back tightness, soreness, whatever you want to call it. They could, another physical game like this, they could really use him, especially matching up on a guy like, I don't know, like DJ Jeffries. It's a blow. It's a blow. But I also think Kentucky's going to get a lot of open looks. We've seen this Mississippi State defense, they love to collapse, push you to the baseline, but that also opens up some threes, some corner threes and whatnot. I think these numbers are right. I think in the Mississippi State's 3 SEC games, they've let up at least 8 threes in all 3. So you see the path to Kentucky getting their good looks off, especially with how blazing fast they play in transition. I expect Kentucky to knock down some shots. Both these teams have been fouling a lot. in the past 3 games. They're fouling at a rate both of them about 7% higher in the past 3 games than they did in non-conference play. And you're seeing that affect the outcomes of these games. You've seen with Cam Matthews. Even Chris Jans comes out and says it in his presser, says, we've been working on me and Cam. We've been working with these fouls. Past 3 games, Cam Matthews, 4 fouls, 3 fouls, 5 fouls. So that's really affecting how they play defense. And then same with Kentucky. Aaron Bradshaw has at least 3 fouls in 6 of his last 7 games. So both teams are being affected by the increased foul rates. That's definitely going to play a factor. And Mississippi State has been very poor from the free throw line, shooting just above 60% in the past 3 games. So with both teams kind of coming off emotional games, this one is going to be played with high intensity, and I absolutely can't wait for it.
You mentioned foul rates. That leads kind of into a player I was about to talk about. It's Smith. We do all the breakdowns for statistics and things and computer rank. Well, those take into account your season. And Mississippi State's season has been played mostly without Smith. He's gotten back. He has been tremendous. He's been efficient. He does, I think, turn it over at a little bit of a problematic rate, but not at a rate that negates all his great contributions. But what he does do is he also fouls a lot. He's been charged with 5 fouls per 40 minutes. This just in, a lot of times in the SEC, you don't get the generous road whistle. At the same time, State's got some depth there. It's got Jimmy Bell. It's got Kayshawn Murphy. It's got some guys who can play some minutes for them, but at the same time, he's their best player. That's one thing I'm watching. The other thing is just, guys, and Kentucky fans are probably sick of it, but you got to use this when you're breaking down a game. You look at State's roster, and State's got guys that have played a lot of basketball. Smith, Cam Matthews, Shaquille Moore, DJ Jeffries, guys that have been playing college basketball for several years. Kentucky is no doubt the more talented team, but we've seen this time and time again. Shot selection or maybe possession usage is a little questionable down the stretch. It's young guys taking shots and not making them. We've talked about Kentucky's defense. It's not awful by any stretch, but Kentucky is 54th in KenPom in defensive efficiency and 8th on offense. So those are a couple of angles that I'm kind of looking at in this matchup here. Max, I'll start with you. Give me your take on those things as factors of significance and maybe anything else that you see is notable here before we let Blake do the same.
Yeah, and I said this in our reactions video. I said major learning experience for Kentucky. And similar to how Mississippi State had a learning experience against Tennessee with that nasty Tennessee high press, I think Mississippi State is going to be, from now on, is going to be a little bit more prepared to deal with a high press like that. Similar to Kentucky, I think they're going to be a little bit more prepared now down the stretch in those late game possessions to take care of the basketball and get the best shot available. So I think both teams have had, just in this past week that we're coming off of, I think both teams had learning experiences and stuff that they can add on. And that's what makes this game so interesting. It's like 2 teams in very similar spots, both coming off big emotional weeks, both in need of a win with Blake went through the history. The past 4 games, 2 of them have been double overtime. I think there's just so many compelling storylines in this game. And I think both teams are in spots where they're coming off that emotional game and they both have stuff they can work on. It's just a matter of who implements their game plan better. What do you see, Blake?
Yeah, I'm not as bothered by some of the things that maybe you guys are when it comes to Kentucky, especially in a game at Rupp against a team that, I'll call it what it is. They haven't won a lot of games on the road and played that well on the road. Mississippi State has not. So I don't really know that, and this is a team that shoots it poorly from outside, shoots it poorly from the free throw line. If you take those 2 elements away, there's one path to success for Mississippi State here. And we'll see, right? We'll see if Kentucky can defend well. inside the perimeter, because if they do that, they're going to be just fine. Because I've not seen a Mississippi State team. They're way better than they were last year shooting the ball, even though 32% is probably not where they want to be. But the free throw issues we talked about, percentage is actually, it's not terrible. They're 71% from the free throw line. But again, you're going on the road. You maybe have a little bit of that hangover effect from the Alabama game where you're thinking about it now. You're missing the free throws in key moments. You find yourself in that same position and you wonder, are we doing this again? So Chris, you said one thing that I don't know that I fully agree with. Like, I know that Kentucky has a bunch of freshmen, but we have seen time and time again, I think we lean into way too much just into maybe the Texas A&M game, where they lost that game in overtime, but we've seen Kentucky's freshmen step up time and time again and not look like freshmen. And they have two old guys in Antonio Reeves and Trey Mitchell who have stepped up time and time again. So I know Mississippi State's the more experienced team on paper, but I don't know that I think they have a big experience edge by any means over Kentucky, just based on, I think we've just seen it. I mean, we've called it, Max and I've said that they're gamers. Like, they're guys that they just step up time and time again. And sure, we can throw in the Wilmington game, which everyone's going to always come back to. But if you just take that out of the equation, Kentucky has not played a bad game all season. If you just throw that out, even the Kansas game, they played really well. They just ran into a buzzsaw in the second half against Kansas. Texas A&M, they ran into Wade Taylor. I don't see that same sort of output from Mississippi State offensively that I would have seen from Kansas or Texas A&M with a all-world player in Wade Taylor and an all-world performance from Tyrese Radford too. I just don't know that I see that same thing here from Mississippi State. Maybe it happens. And let me tell you, I'm rooting for Tolu Smith here. I'm rooting for him in a big way. And Trey Mitchell and Tolu Smith, I hope those guys have career performances so I can get the win. The Monstars can get the victory in the Southeastern 14 weekly fantasy game that we're doing now. If you guys want to check that out, go to our Twitter at 14 Southeastern. You can see that I drafted what may be the best team in the history of civilization. Now, Kentucky fans, Reed Shepherd is on Chris's team. I hope he does well too, but just know I don't want him to do as well as Trey Mitchell. So anyways, that's my analysis. I want to see Mississippi State go on the road and score the ball efficiently. So far, they've had 2 road games. They scored 59 points at Georgia Tech, 62 points at South Carolina. So I don't know that Kentucky defensively has the biggest disadvantage that it may look like on paper against this Mississippi State team based on what we've seen to this point.
All right. I'm going to give a little rebuttal. I'll just let it hang in there rhetorically. Is the owner of Reed Shepherd and Antonio Reeves in my 5-man fantasy squad, so we know where my bread will be buttered in this game. Do we know for sure Blake didn't rig the draft?
I forgot you had Antonio Reeves too.
Yes, I have him too. Are we sure Blake didn't rig the draft? I mean, would we bet our life on it? We just don't know. I mean, the man picked first. We just don't know. But that aside, okay, Blake, you did have some things that were valid rebuttals, and I'm going to clarify a little bit on what I meant on Kentucky, okay? I'm a big Reed Shepherd guy. I mean, anybody who watches the kid play is a big Reed Shepherd guy. I know they've got Rob Dillingham. He seems to be the guy, and maybe this is just we need to let our guys play through this in January so we know what we've got in March. And so if one option gets taken away, another option is available. If it's me and my life is depending on things, the guy that I want shooting the ball late in games is Reed Shepherd. 84% from the line, 60% from 2, 54% from 3. Dillingham's the guy that it seemed to me got the most touches down the stretch. 79% from the line, 51% from 2, 42% from 3. Not bad at all. Those are excellent numbers, but they're not Reed Shepherd numbers. Antonio Reeves, 85% from the line, 59% from 2, 43% from 3. So that's what I mean. I mean, and look, how many teams have these kind of choices? I don't know. But that's what I mean when I say possession usage down the stretch. Now look, guys, let's get the picks here. Blake's got something teed up. I can just tell.
Don't.
You don't? Okay.
No.
Look, I think that on a neutral floor, Kentucky's probably 2 or 3 points better than Mississippi State. It's not on a neutral floor. I've pretty consistently gone with the team when games are pretty even that's playing at home. Now, I know Rupp has not been invincible in recent years, including this year, the way it has been in the past. You've got that UNC Wilmington loss on December 2, kind of nagging away at Kentucky's resume. But look, when in doubt, don't overthink this. I think Kentucky's a little bit better, and I think it's at home. I will go with the Cats.
Max.
I'll go next. Yeah, sure. This is an easy one for me, to be honest. I'm going Kentucky here, and I just don't think, Blake, I think your analysis was really, really spot on this one. I just don't think Mississippi State has proven that they can score on the road consistently, and they're going to have to do that. They're going to have their best road scoring night like in recent years if they want to win this one. I like how Justin Edwards made both of his threes last game, get him a little bit of a confidence boost. You're going to need him without Adu Thiero to play with some physicality. Yeah, I think Cal, he didn't tip his hand. I mean, the schemes are the schemes, but I think Kentucky is going to be able to get some threes, some open looks against the way Mississippi State plays defense and how fast Kentucky plays. Give me the Wildcats.
Yeah, I mean, Mississippi State went 7 of 30 from 3 against Georgia Tech, 23%. They went 3 of 13 from 3, 23% against South Carolina on the road. Those are the 2 road games they played. If you take into account the one game, I mean, guys, I go even further. It's like neutral court game against Washington State, 5 of 19. I mean, now Tulane, they went 13 of 28, but I think, as we all know, that seems to be the outlier to this point. They scored 106 points in that game. Murray State, that was at home, sorry. The semi-away, where did they play Rutgers? Is that in the Prudential Center? Yeah, so they went, 4 of 16, 25%. So, I mean, I think to me it's pretty simple if I'm Cal. Like, hey, shoot as many threes as you want to shoot, and everybody box out. Don't let Tulu Smith get a rebound. If you do that, I think if you're Kentucky, you're feeling really good about things. And again, we have to make these predictions based on what we've seen. To me, I would want to see a performance from Mississippi State on the road, even though I will admit Kentucky defensively, that they could have some stretches here where they give up points. But to this point, I probably have not seen the consistency from Mississippi State in terms of scoring across the board. And it feels like, I don't know. I mean, like, what do you think Kentucky's biggest Achilles heel is? Is it guards? Is it big guys? I don't know. And so it's kind of been a mixture at times, just depending on who they're playing. I mean, so I just don't. Do I think this will be close? Yes, because it seems like anytime these two teams play, it's close. But again, we're just picking winners here, and if we're doing that, it's hard to pick against Kentucky because I just think it's one where I feel like the path to victory for Kentucky is a little bit more open, and they have a few more ways to get there than Mississippi State, who I think would just have to have a career shooting night and prove that they can consistently hit free throws in what will undoubtedly be a close game. And I don't have a lot of confidence based on what we've seen through 16 games from them to feel like I could bank on that to pick them to win a game at Rupp Arena. So they're good enough. They're talented enough, but I just think it's like, if this was in Starkville, yeah, I'd really think pretty hard about it and may pick Mississippi State, but it's not. And so I'll take the Cats in this one.
We are all taking the Cats. Win or lose with our picks. We'll be back to talk about it on Thursday morning. Best way to know is subscribe, enable your notifications so you can see our breakdown of that and all other SEC games that happen on Wednesday night. For Blake Lovell and Max Barr, I'm Chris Lee. You're watching Southeastern 14 presented by BetOnline.